Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's webinar, Strengthening Development Through Strategic Partnership, a conversation with Nikhil Unikrishnan and Juan S. Webb. Nikhil Unikrishnan is the Director of E-Mobility Services at Omnex, bringing over a decade of experience supporting automotive OEMs, Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers, as well as clients in renewable energy, semiconductor, and aerospace industries. An Intax principal assessor and exemplar global certified lead auditor, Nikhil is a recognized expert in ISO 26262 functional safety, automotive SPICE, ISO SAE 21434 cybersecurity, and SOTIF management system standards. Juan Webb is an Intax A-SPICE competent instructor and regional representative for the Americas, serving as a leading voice in automotive SPICE adoption and advancement across the industry. With his deep expertise in process assessment, coaching, and implementation, Juan continues to guide global teams in achieving excellence in software-driven system development and organizational maturity. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, I kindly ask that you type them in the chat box, and we will address as many as we can at the end of the webinar. We also kindly ask all participants to complete the survey afterward. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. If you would like a PDF copy of the presentation or the webinar recording, please contact us at webinars@omnex.com. Without further ado, please welcome Nikhil and Juan.
Thank you for the
Thank you,
introduction
Andrew.
there, Andrew. Appreciate it. And I'm glad to join here today along with my colleague Juan. And we hope the next 1 hour we'd be able to interest you in some interesting topics that we have in store for you. So with that, and without further ado, let us get started. So Juan will be presenting, and I'll be co-presenting with him. And so Juan, we can go on to the next slide, please.
Okay.
So I know most of you have been to Omnex webinars in the past. If not, for any of you that are still joining in for the first time, just giving a quick rundown about who we are and what we do. Omnex is headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and has been, serving our customers for more than 4 decades now, with presence in North America, Europe, Asia, and having served as subject matter experts in the development of numerous different industry standards. The organization not only brings consulting and training services to our customers in automotive, aerospace, medical device, semiconductor, and food industry, but also we also have software solutions as part of our Omnex system. So do check out omnex.com and omnexsystems.com if you would like to learn more about that. Something interesting that we also, with over 16 worldwide offices, we offer training in, I think, 16 plus languages at this point. And, that's something that we do as part of our global footprint. Let's move on to the next slide, please. I mentioned a lot of our senior SMEs have been active contributors. You can see some of their faces on the slide here. And name it, like, for example, the functional safety ISO 26262 standard, the ISO SAE 21434 cybersecurity standard, the SOTIF standard, and numerous other standards. We have our subject matter experts supporting the development of the next iteration coming up. And that's something that we have been supporting for quite a bit. So let's move on to the next slide thereafter. A quick look at our global footprint and our regional headquarters and regional offices. Of course, we are spread across the globe because that's where our customers are. And just, if you are joining from any one of our offices other than North America, so, good evening or good early morning or different time zone that you might be joining in from. So thank you again for making the time to join us today. Let's go on to the next slide. A quick look at our global e-mobility team. You can see pictures of a lot of us. There's Juan and me also on the second row there. So we're proud to have all of our colleagues. And again, this is only a snapshot of some of them, but very focused on who work in the e-mobility space in automotive SPICE, functional safety, and SOTIF and related topics. And after this one, we have one more slide. So Omnex, we have been specializing in the following 8 areas: strategy, business transformation, learning development, e-mobility, technology platform, sustainability, AI, and also cybersecurity. The webinar that you're joining in today is part of our e-mobility services offering. And during the webinar, of course, it's something interesting. It's not conventional, and Juan and I will talk about that in detail, how it's going to be of a different style, and how we will approach this compared to some of the traditional webinars that we've done in the past. More on that later. But with that, check out, of course, the Omnex website if you want to learn more about it. I won't keep you further away from the topic than we already have. So let's move on. Of course, we already went through the bio, so we can skip that. Thank you, Andrew, for introducing both Juan and myself. So again, thank you. All right. So Juan, I believe this is where you will pick up the mic, and we will pass the mic back and forth multiple times during the course of this next 1 hour. So feel, comfortable with the fact that we're going to have an exciting conversation back and forth through the whole hour.
Thank you, Nikhil. As Nikhil said, I'm going to talk about the agenda, but I also want to tell you as I put the agenda up that, as Nikhil said, we're going to do something a little bit different. Well, and maybe this is more of a kind of a interview style, podcast style, just discussion. So we will pass information back and forth. We'll change up who's talking. We may even ask each other questions as we go along. So we're going to take that approach with this webinar. And unlike most webinars, we're not really going to go through the standards and section by section and talk to you about the different things and how to apply them. We're going to take an overview approach at a topic that's really affected by the standards. And then in our future activities, our future webinars, which we'll talk about later, we'll get back into doing things that are more traditional and standard related that we can help educate the community. But with that, I want to tell you about the agenda. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to just give you an overview of some of the related standards. And we have to do that because we want to make sure everybody is level set on terminology. We don't know the background of everyone who's attending the webinar, but it'd be good to get kind of a view of where we sit in this ecosystem for the related standards that we have in place. Then we're going to talk about the impact to the automotive ecosystem. There's some interesting things that have been happening, and just want to talk about how the relationship, everyone has a relationship to someone else related to the products or services. And we'll talk about the title and why we picked the title and why it applies. And then the event that just happened here in September, we'll talk about, why that was important. And it fits right into this topic too, because it relates to the strategic partnerships that exist in the industry, and just go through some lessons learned, and then give you a chance to ask us questions. And as Andrew said, we can use the chat to pose questions in there. And throughout this, we'll have a series of polling questions that come up. We would definitely like for you to provide honest responses to those. It'll help us kind of shape the way things are going, throughout the rest of the year and into next year. So really, this webinar is really following along from the NA SPICE conference. And I know that if you're not familiar with it, later on we're going to talk about that. But the conference was there to help shape the conversation around safe and secure development of high quality systems. And the conference brought together a lot of top OEMs and a lot of the top suppliers in the area. So during these conversations, we said, we're going to go back and forth. We're going to talk about things that we've learned. We're going to use some of our experiences to give you some insight, and we'll unpack some of the outcomes of the conference as well. But more importantly, we're going to have a good time talking about some topics that are important and try to relate them to what's happening in the environment.
Okay.
So with that,
So,
we're going to start with a short education.
right.
I'm going to pass it back to
So,
Nikhil.
this is an interesting a topic that we wanted to dive in. But as we went through this, as we were doing the dry runs, Juan and myself, we thought, yes, there will be some members that join us in this audience that may not be familiar with these terms. So it's not, as Juan said, it's not a detailed dive into these standards, but just a quick overview of what we will be talking about. And to start things off, maybe let's go to the next slide, Juan. This is, some data we were able to collate in terms of recalls in automotive due to embedded software. And I'm sure this is something that keeps us, uh, showing up in our notifications on the cell phones and our news feed all the time, how recalls are happening every week, if not every day. Some other OEM, some other system, something is going wrong somewhere. Like we know about it. But let's take a look at some of the actual numbers. So if you look at total recalls 2015, 300, but software contribution into that was like about 5.1%. As you went into 2024, it's almost a decade later. Now the 370 recalls reported from last year, it's like about 41%. So that's almost half. Now you're talking about all of that being contributing from just software related recalls. So definitely software is a big contributing factor. And that is just emphasizing the need for better practices to be followed in the process of developing embedded systems. And we've seen typically major systems that have been affected, like infotainment, instrument clusters, ADAS, airbag systems, EV systems, powertrain systems. Again, these are some of the, if you took a Pareto chart, these are some of the high hitters all the time. And that just emphasizes to have some of those best practices in place. So let's go on to the next slide and talk about some of those key standards that really play in. So Juan, go ahead.
So as Nikhil said, we're not aware of the background. So what we'll do, kind of give you a brief introduction. So there are two topics that we'll cover here. And we'll talk about automotive spice and we'll talk about functional safety. So what you're looking at on the screen here as we talk about automotive spice, we're talking about the framework that's used to look at the maturity level of organizations doing development of complex electronics. And one of the things that's important is that this standard is really not a process. It's not something that an organization needs to take and identify their process areas and say my requirements are SIS1, my integration is SIS4. Really, it's a guide. It's a set of best practices that provides a framework for organizations who are developing, and it provides a means for your customers, OEMs or tier ones to tier twos, to kind of get a measurement of where you fit in your development maturity. And the diagram that we're looking at really shows you all of the process areas that are kind of covered in the automotive spice model. And this is for, like I said, customers all the way down through the supply chains. And if you look, really the areas are broken into different process groups: system engineering and software, supporting processes, which are important as well. But this just gives you an overview of what the standard is looking for. None of these things are new. A lot of these practices have been around for 20, 30 years. It's just that they're being compiled into this one model to provide you with guidance on what's the expectation in the automotive industry. Another standard that's really based on one of the old IEC standards, 61508, it's really a functional safety standard. This is really about supporting automotive risk in automotive, right? This standard helps, provide guidance on the expectation related to the automotive safety life cycle. If you can imagine, and I'll bring the overview of the standard up as well. If you can imagine, similar to what's in the automotive spice model, there are some basic foundational principles related to having some type of infrastructure in place to guide the development, having some, some specific activities for life cycle that are ensured that happen during the development of safety critical devices that, ensure the maturity and reduce the risk of, a product failing in the field. Now, but these two standards are a part of the automotive infrastructure to ensure that development is that we're producing safe and quality products in automotive.
Now, SOTIF is sort of a build on what one was saying in functional safety. Think about these ADAS systems and all of those Waymos and vehicles like that you've been hearing about in the news that do self-driving, right? And it becomes very important there, but also for other safety-related applications where you're not only looking at what malfunctions can take place, which is primarily the focus of functional safety, but with SOTIF, you're also talking about how functional insufficiencies can also play into some kind of risk being introduced into the product. So that's where ISO 21448 or the SOTIF standard is coming into picture. And the framework is shown on the right-hand side. And this is typically done as a sort of like an addition on top of what 26262 is as a base. So you have 26262 going along with SOTIF in combination to the organizations that do practice SOTIF within their QMS or BMS. Next, let's take a look at cybersecurity. I mean, of course, it's not a new news that cybersecurity is important. It's taking all of this, highlights in terms of product development. It's used to be a foreign concept some years ago. What is product cybersecurity? Why is it even important in a mechanical car? But now we know how important it is, and it's no longer a news. So ISO SAE 21434, you hit the next button there, that will actually show, again, it's like a guiding framework. It's a set of requirements that you should ideally be following. And something we have emphasized in previous webinars we've done also is that a lot of these standards give you requirements. It doesn't mean that you just build your management system based on one standard, but more on that later when we talk about integration. But that's a key concept, how all of these standards come together to integrate into your existing framework. So on that note, if we go to the next slide, all of these frameworks, they have to really integrate at the end of the day into your organizational management system. So ASPICE, as Juan said, and functional safety to 6262, and then same thing with SOTIF and cybersecurity as well. All of them come together, and really, you're not going to have 10 requirements management process just because each standard asked you to do that. You're just going to have one that integrates the requirements from all of them. So that is one of those topics we will emphasize even more as we get into the later set of the slides here. On that note, one, just maybe a question here to ask you. You mentioned ASPICE is not a process, and functional safety is, sometimes often construed. People just make a one process just to satisfy functional safety. What are your thoughts in terms of, people doing siloed environments, and what is the downside with having those kinds of siloed systems in place?
Well, Nikhil, I think the downside is that we lose the ability to develop a good system. And I know we're going to talk about some of this a little bit later and some of the impact, but if I'm developing a product that I believe does not have any safety requirements or an ASIL or QM level, and then I start developing a requirement that is ASIL D, I can't look at it as two different development activities because there's only one architect. right? And that architecture needs to be, we need to be thinking about all of that development at once, not as an afterthought. Well, I got my product and well, now I need to make it safe. It needs to be an integrated activity. You can't design safety. You should not be designing safety in later. It should be part of your development to make your product safe or secure, or safe and secure. So with that question, if we are for done kind of giving our overview of the standard, one of the things I'd like to do is, you know, Nikhil and I, when we were talking about this, you know, we came up with this topic, right? Strengthening development through strategic partnerships. And the question came up, you know, what does this mean, right? You know, how do we, you know, what are we really want people to get out of this? So we're going to spend the rest of the time kind of talking about that and addressing the audience as well, because we're going to give you some examples where this might be important and get you thinking about, you know, why this topic is something that we need to be considering moving forward. So the question is, right, and I know Nikhil mentioned this earlier, right? You get these notifications on your phone, you can open up the news, you can see there are a lot of activities happening where vehicles are being recalled for one reason or another, right? So what I put in front of you is a question to kind of, you know, think about, right? Consider that vehicle recalls surged in Q3 for, you know, the highest quarterly total in almost 2 years. I think there are multiple times I've seen that article posted on LinkedIn, right? And if you go look at it, you can see some of the data associated with that. But the real question behind this is, what impact does recalls have on the automotive ecosystem, right? And this is something that I think as we go through this webinar and we start to have our conversations here in the next few slides, I think this is something that we really need to, you know, to talk about. You know, but I guess the first question, Nikhil, if I could ask, do you think we need to highlight what an ecosystem is, or what an automotive ecosystem is and what's included?
Absolutely. So we talk about internal and external stakeholders in all of these concepts, right? I mean, really, when you take a look at your organization, who are your internal stakeholders, who are your external stakeholders, and who really matter of course, you know, number one, if you think about your external stakeholders, who gets affected by recalls? I mean, think about your customers, think about your suppliers, think about partners you have, you know, that you may be dealing with, like dealerships, and who else, right? And same thing with internal, you know, stakeholders. Like think about the different design development teams. There are organizations that have one design center being a supplier to another design center. How does that play into all of this? And when we say automotive ecosystem, it's a collection, it's a web of all of those different stakeholders coming together to make the product a success, to make your reliable car function the way it should. And when we say reliable, it's not just 1 year from the date you roll out from the dealership. It's what is what is the life of a car? I mean, of course, we've seen that change over decades. You know, I'm just thinking about the case study we used to have, where we have the term rust bucket, right? I mean, there was a rust belt where in the past, when we talked about mechanical chassis and all these cars, because of the salt in the Midwest and any place that you had snow, and people used to use salt, and we didn't have the number of years those cars were lasting in terms of staying away from rust before. But nowadays, you can see them withstanding in much better zeal. How is that possible? Because there was innovation now. And now, as we battle with electronics and software, that's sort of the same challenge we're coming into, right? And now adding to that is AI and safety, and there's so many different things that's coming in. So stop there.
How about we? So I think we also have a few questions that we can pose this question to the audience as well, right? So we're gonna make available polling questions, and And what I'd like for you to do is consider this from three different perspectives, right? From that executive leadership level, or as a practitioner, right? Those guys who are actually doing the work in automotive, supporting these things, or as if you are just a general user, right? And the reason these questions have really come up is because I'll share a personal story that I went to drop my vehicle off to get work done the other day, and they needed to keep it for a week, so I needed to get a rental car. Well, a lot of the local rental car agencies did not have vehicles. And even when I called down to the airport, they were, their supply was very limited. And it could be there's other activities happening here. But then, the thing that makes it even worse is that when there are recalls, there are things that, that impact the supply chain. So as you're thinking about these questions, we'll give you a second to answer some of those. Okay. We'll give you a second to answer some of those, because I think these are important. And I think it's important that we start to think about the impact of, some of the things that happen in automotive that seemingly are not directly affecting us. And, I never thought recalls were really affecting me, because if I didn't get a notice in the mail about my vehicle, I just kept going. I mean, what are your thoughts, Nikhil?
Exactly. I mean, if it's a safety recall, people pay attention. I can tell you, a couple of years ago, for one of the vehicles I had, they said, here's a recall notice. It's a non-safety recall, and next time you get it to the service dealership and maybe do it. I don't believe I ever did it because it was a low priority thing. But I mean, the vehicle kept on going. Of course, I understand that how engineers and developers made their due diligence in making that decision that was not safety related. If it was safety related or security related, people usually have a little bit more urgency to do it. Sometimes people still don't do that. Like once the car leaves your facility, it's no longer under your control. Other than, of course, you think about like OTAs, which you can do in over the updates in the garage. But that's also driving another problem. Can I ship half-baked products out of my door because now they don't have to be perfect?
Okay. All right. So it looks like we do have some results from the webinar poll. And if I look at this, for part of the first question is we really talk about, it looks like we talked about OEM and reputation and financial strain. If I'm an executive, absolutely, right? That is, that's what's going to be important to me is the reputation of my organization. I don't know, Nikhil, can you do you have any other thoughts on that? I mean, I think that's a good, looks like that's the one that gets the highest rating.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
I can say, reputation is earned hard, but you can lose it quick. It's just like trust.
Yeah, and then it's hard to regain.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then for those who are practitioners, okay, it looks like we got the highest percentage on enhancing ASPICE maturity and safety cases. And this is where, we believe the industry should focus. And I think that's a fair point. Ensuring that we are doing the good things in development that we're supposed to. And I'll always repeat this. It's none of this is new. No one is asking you to do anything different than what was expected in normal development. Just you need to apply the necessary rigor to develop good products. And then for the last one, damaged brand reputation. So I think this is a funny one. We used to have an acronym in the South for one of our OEMs, and I won't talk about it now. When we were growing up, because my parents used to say these things because they always felt that these cars were always breaking down. So, as a consumer, right, your view is based on what you see when you're driving or what experience you have. Whether it's it's having trouble starting or it's shutting down unnecessarily. But that's what so I think these were all three good questions. And as far as the audience, you should think about those in your everyday life and how they apply. Nikhil, before we move on, is there anything else that you want to highlight?
I think prevention is better than cure, right? I think it's known to everyone. It's just good to be reminded of it occasionally, because preventive um, practices that we put into all of this development and new product introduction practices, they pay well in the long term. There's good ROI
Yes.
into all of that.
Okay. Well, so these questions really came up because of, the discussion Nikhil and I were having about, about my situation in rental cars. And then we started thinking about the title. If you're looking at the title, and people are asking us, so what does this mean? So why strengthening development through strategic partnerships? Why do we make that a topic, right? What does it mean, and how does it really apply? So we'll spend the next few minutes kind of talking about that, and we'll make sure that we can address some of the basic topics here. All right. So with that, we want to move ahead. And Nikhil, before I move off this slide, is there anything that you want to highlight about our topic?
No, I think the concept of not just having it as transactional versus something for the long term in terms of having strategic partnerships. That's what we're trying to have, that mindset in new product development. That's the whole concept of why we are emphasizing this.
All right. Okay. So before we get into it, I'm definitely going to ask the question again. As we talk about this, and before we move on, I'm going to give you one more polling question to get us started, right? Before we get into this topic, just so I get an understanding of what people know. All right. So what best describes your current partnership model with your customer? All right. You could be a tier 1, you could be tier 2, but whoever you consider your customer, what best describes that model for you? So it looks like the polling question is already up. And, if you guys would go ahead and quickly answer that, and then we can get into talking about, what all this means.
While they're, looking at the topics, one question I have for you is, and then emphasize more about it, is when we talk about strategic partnerships, how does it play into the context of safe, secure, and also scalable development? How all of that plays in. So something also for us to further dive into specifically that context.
Nikhil, I think the important part of this is that strategic partnerships, this is more of a guiding principle, right? This is something that we need to start to think about as we move forward. And it's not just the title that we have here. It's really a call to action for everybody, right? If you're an OEM, if you're a tier 1 that's developing a component that needs to go into the automobile, or it needs to be integrated into something else, right? You and your development activities are affecting the people that receive your product, whether it's the end user or an integrator, right? And a lot of times we don't have any type of, formal relationship, with those organizations, right? We make it work because it's kind of the way that, that development happens. But, I want to make sure that it's understood that, these are the basis. Now, partnerships and working together are the basis for being able to, to reduce some of the recalls that we have. Because as we dig into them, we'll find out that a lot of the root cause, the foundational root cause will be our ability to communicate in this system environment, and to make sure that things like, things like I put a limit on my window switch, that if you cycle it too many times to protect the motor, I'm going to lock the window out. Well, eventually, someone does that, it gets locked out, and now I'm stuck. I'm stuck in the vehicle. Right. And I've seen that case happen, or, not realizing that from a safety perspective, when I have a push button start, how do I shut the vehicle off? Right. These are all, this is a guiding principle for communication and working together. So I think that was a good question. I also wanted to highlight that for companies that might have said, hey, we are still exploring. The reality is that even companies that claim to operate independently are often part of a broader ecosystem anyway, whether it's formal or informal, right? If you have you have those agreements, whether informal or informal, and you have that relationship. So it's time that we actually decide to acknowledge that and move forward, and start to build some type of, relationship agreements, for working through that. So Nikhil, I think that was a good question. So how about I ask you a question now? What do you think makes a partnership strategic, in this automotive ecosystem today?
So when we say partnership, I like to use one of the examples that we're all familiar with, like the Toyota partnership model that they do with their suppliers. Okay? And not just Toyota, many other OEMs are also taking it, but that's one popular OEM which has adopted it, where they directly work with the supplier and really integrate along with the supplier in terms of how the supplier's success is also the OEM success. It's not distinct. So that's the mindset to have when you talk about partnerships, that it's not different islands of success, and I need to get the cheapest product from my supplier, and that's all I really care about. But it's more than that. It's all about how can you have sustainable development in all of this happen. So another example is in like A-Spice. You hear sometimes OEMs call for capability level 1, capability level 2 requirements, and some tier 1 suppliers are sometimes happy. Oh, I only have to satisfy capability level 1 or 2. I don't have to go to capability level 3. But in the details of the requirements, capability level 3 really talks about having organizational processes in place. That's something that's to your advantage as the organization to have it, because now you can take that and deploy into other programs that you do for other OEMs and whatnot. So sometimes it's not just about meeting a certain requirement, but can you go beyond that and also think about maybe how it best fits into your roadmap and strategy and success. So sometimes even though the customer might say capability level 2, aim for capability level 3. That's one good example to look at.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think that's a great point. I also want to highlight, as we were talking about that working relationship between OEMs and tier 1s, that if you've been developing an automotive with OEMs, think about the concept that OEMs provide, where they give you maybe source code, libraries, MATLAB models, right? What type of relationship is that? What's the expectation? Right. And I know sometimes we put that information in our, in the formal agreements, but the relationship really isn't described, right? Because that supplier and customer relationship has been skewed at that point, because now the customer becomes a supplier becomes a customer. That's why in addition to what we've been discussing, that's why this idea of partnership or formalizing or identifying or finding a way to work together where the lines of communication are clear is going to be important for the automotive ecosystem.
Certainly.
Spot on. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm in agreement with what you said. Spot on.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. All right, so we do have. So if we talk about the responses that came from this, the strategic co-development partnership model was really what people said was, probably the current one. Surprisingly, there were some that said we're still exploring options. And for those organizations that are still exploring options, if you're developing complex electronics that fit into a bigger system, it's a really good time to start having those conversations, because we don't develop anything in a vacuum, right? Any decisions that we make, and I use the example of that window lifter and that timeout switch, that cycle switch to keep from overheating the motor. Use that example. If we don't communicate that to the people that are installing the door or are going to be, or the users, right? Someone's going to think that that's a failure, right? It was not part of what we discussed as part of the requirements. It was a decision we had to make to protect some of the other components. So, we all have to be part of this ecosystem, and we all have to start discussing this. And if you think about, I challenge everyone to do the following: spend some time looking through the reasons for the automotive recalls. And as you start to read those reasons, you're going to find that a lot of it has to do with system understanding, not just the recalls, but some of the technical bulletins. Okay, so I think we've probably, we've kind of talked about this topic enough. Anything else we want to kind of add about the concept of strategic partnerships? I've given some input. You have anything else?
No, I think there is, of course, at length we'll talk about. And just to highlight to the audience here, this is first one of the series of webinars that we're going to have. Today is sort of setting the context and the background. We are going to have a recurring webinar series on this topic where we'll dive into specific areas within engineering, like topics like requirements or testing or program management, whatnot, where we will go into details and what best practices can be followed in each one of them. Some ideas we have, but this is mainly to set that context as we, talk about why this is important and why we should go that route.
That's a great point. And so with that, one of the things we should do is we should move forward.
Yeah.
So where we can actually, so we should move forward and talk about the remaining topics. So I've been talking for a little bit, so I'll actually hand that back to you, Nikhil.
So I think NA Spice, for those of you who don't know about NA Spice stands for North American Spice Conference. And it is an event that Juan and I and any other colleagues in the industry, we had the privilege of attending. Juan and I also had the privilege of being the organizing committee in that, helping the whole conference come to life from start. So it was born out of a need for a collaborative space for people interested in safe, secure, and quality embedded systems development in North America. So US, Canada, Mexico, we had attendees from, of course, North America. Besides that, we had people coming in from Europe, Asia, and it was a 2-day event that happened last week of September and came out fantastic. I mean, at least that's the feedback we heard, and everybody really liked it. And of course, we had presentations, workshops, hands-on activities, keynotes. The OEMs were also there: Ford, GM, Chrysler, and Stellantis. They all presented as well. The main North American OEMs, and of course, a lot of tier 1 leading suppliers were there. We'll quickly show you that. So if you go on to the next one. I will ask maybe Juan, from your point of view, what did you feel this event meant to the community? And you could just highlight why it is important. And then I'll take a look at what I learned when I at the end of that second day from the conference.
So Nikhil, I guess, so before I get into that, one of the things that I want to say is that I thought it was a great event. I thought it provided an opportunity for the community, which, I guess this is what we have on the slide anyway, for the community to come together. And I say the community that's been involved in a lot of these topics since I really got into automotive in 2012. And I really got into this ASPICE topic and process improvement here in automotive, probably around 2013. But I think the conference mattered because it helps us build that regional ecosystem. This conference has been going on, a similar conference has been going on in Europe since 2006, right? I've been to Europe several times. You've probably been to go to Germany or and participate in a similar conference. And we always mention that. Well, I'm looking around, I see 20 people from the U.S. You know, when are we going to build this community here to be able to perform that activity here and start to focus on topics that are unique to North America, right? I mean, part of the benefits of the conference is really that, you know, gets us to align on some of the standards that we talked about earlier and focus on how we do things here in the U.S. And then it provides a unique value to North America because, you know, there are some things that are different. There are standards that apply internationally that don't apply to us here. And it also allowed us to kind of come together and start to talk about building relationships to some of the other suppliers or some of the OEMs to help either the OEMs with some of their quality topics or to work together with suppliers who are delivering some of the products, right? So that's part of the value. And in the community, right, it's just built, you know, the community has been built from years of Gate for Spice events since 2018 timeframe here in the U.S. And the things that have happened in Europe. So we have a platform to work together here locally and focus on the people here in the Americas that can help drive quality, secure, and safe products. So, I mean, this is kind of what I think. So, you know, you can provide your input as well.
Oh, I think it's a great platform, and we'll also talk about something that's coming up in next year in the subsequent slide. But it really highlighted the need, and maybe in the next slide, if we go to that, I'll talk about. Skipped a slide in my brain. As Juan mentioned, you know, we had all the leading players from North America, like in terms of the automotive ecosystem, they were present. And one of the things that we learned from the takeaways is that from all of the presentations we saw, all the workshops that they gave, is systems thinking. It's not a new concept. It's always been there, but it is becoming more and more of a norm than something as a delighter or something to aspire to. It is something that is supposed to be the norm. And integration is no longer optional. When we talk about those integrated standards concept that both of us were discussing in the start of the webinar, that is no longer something you can say we can put it off for later, because the landscape is changing, requirements are evolving. The further you delay into making those things happen, the more risk you are bringing into your product development, and also overheads in the process. As companies are adopting technology like AI to make systems leaner and more efficient, you don't want to have all of that extra weight just to have just a management system with no purpose floating in the air in the organization. So that's where collaboration also comes in. To make this happen, organizations cannot think in terms of departments and just functions. That's where the process thinking really is important. And we saw numerous presentations that happened that talked about how AI has been adopted in not just new product development, like using AI for maybe doing code or AI for reviewing requirements, or AI for also evaluating the quality of work products. But again, when you apply AI, of course, it's a fancy new word and it seems very slick and efficient, but can you apply AI to safe systems development? Well, you can't really do that. I was just reading about this article where the developer created a code and it passed manual review, and it went into it had a successful integration, and then suddenly major things started breaking up after. And when they looked at the development, the developer was using AI code to make all of this happen. So even though it passed a manual review, but the whole problem is, where is it all stemming from? You can't think of AI as just your one-stop solution. Human in the loop is still very much essential. And I'm sorry I skipped past the previous slide, but just wanted to give a shout out to all the organizing uh, companies that really made that event successful, because it really gave us a platform in North America for everybody to come together and really talk about these topics that are really important, and really dive into the details. Juan himself, he did a couple of workshops. I also did some workshops and presentations. We were able to highlight those topics we really thought were important. And I know we're running a little bit behind time. We were getting things from Andrew on the side.
Yeah, we can move forward. And just highlight that if you missed it, right?
There you go.
Yep. We're providing you an opportunity to get involved. Save the date, right? Save the date for 29th and 30th. Not only you can participate as a member, as a, come as a participant, but, when we send out the call for papers, you can put in a request to present at the conference. So, and that's what Get Involved actually, kind of talks about here. It's like you can present in the workshop, be a sponsor. If you want more information, go to naspice.net. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. And then, Nikhil, we talk about why you attend, why should we attend? Is there anything else do we want to add to that?
Some of you in the Automotive Spice community are Intact certified assessors. Just icing to the cake is, if you present, you get active credits, and then if you attend the event, you still get passive credits. So that's also just a cherry on the cake, just to make that happen. And of course, networking opportunity. You're going to be networking with all of those key players in the industry and thought leaders. So it's a great place to come together.
Okay. Well, good. So let's move forward, and I'm going to give this back to you so that we can, start to talk about some of the lessons learned. All right. And there we go. naspice.net. If you want to learn to contribute.
Excellent. The last section here is just some of the lessons learned that, as Omnex, how we've been able to support our suppliers and customers in the topic of strengthening strategic partnerships. And one of the examples that I want to first bring up is the use case. If you go to the next slide, please, Juan, is on we talked about the use of digital systems and how AI is playing into all of that. So the next graphic. The OBot is Omnex's homegrown engine that is AI powered, and it is able to connect to all of these different tool chains and extract work product information and then process it against established criteria. For example, Automotive Spice, we have the AutoSSPro.ai product that is able to fetch your work products from these repositories and then perform evaluations and detect any findings, and therefore your internal process teams can then use it for planning improvement action items. So that is a great example of one of the cases we've seen being fruitful for the users of those kinds of engines. And looking at AI from an auditor or an SSO point of view is one thing. There's also the concept of using it for generational purposes. And of course, with all the guardrails and caveats that we mentioned, it's not a one-stop solution, right? So that is what conversational AI, like we have been doing work in terms of like how AI can be used to generate FMEAs based on legacy knowledge and also use of existing bill of material information. So that's also something very key and interesting. On to the next slide really quick.
Okay.
let me next slide. So this is showing how the work products come in from the left-hand side, and the OBOT engine is able to process that information and then generate findings report in terms of where there is conformance and where there are findings. And you can think about work products like your requirements, your test cases, your architecture, test records, change requests, defects, all of them coming in, and then how they can be evaluated. So I'm sure a lot of this is something we've done and we've personally found this to be useful. A lot of other initiatives are also happening around the globe to make all of these things happen. I think our message here is how you implement these solutions. Don't see it as a one-stop AI can fix it all. Human in the loop is essential. I think I'm saying this for the third time in the last couple of minutes, but it's super important to emphasize that. And we've seen issues where it's not been followed and things don't really work out as it should. Okay, I think we can move on.
Okay. So we have about 4 minutes left, and we do have a few more slides to go through. So we might reduce some of the content as we go, but it's really for us to tell you about what the next thing is. So we're going to skip this polling question here, but it really goes back to just understanding your need for AI tool development. It's something you can think about, and we're going to go right into our topic of dealing with competency gaps. Because as we're walking through this is the next thing, right? We talk about the relationships, we talk about the takeaways from the conference, and now we're talking about competency gaps in these complex systems and why these partnerships are important. So really, the idea behind this is just doing things to close them, right? And if your organization doesn't have all the necessary programs in place to do that, idea is partnering with organizations that can, right? And the reason you want to do that is really what we've talked about on the left side over here. And, if you can organize with a partner, like us, for example, we have, hands-on approach to training. Now we have instructor-led training that we can tailor to, where we can, we can tailor the content to make it applicable to your organization. But this is just an example of, the type of things that, we can do moving forward. And Nikhil, I'm going to move to the next one. And then, and here's our training courses, and take a second to get a picture of the QR code, because this is where you can get an idea of the type of things that the organization can provide for you and support you with, and in our partnership to help you close some of these gaps. Anything you'd like to add here, Nikhil?
No, I think that's key content you've emphasized. I think we can move on in the interest of time.
Okay, good. But please take the time to visit the site so that you can see the type of things that are available.
So this is a slide, something that we wanted to share with you. Besides, of course, the training activities that we've been able to do, there are in-person events like Gate for Spice workshops that we have been able to host either on-site and also at some locations. So that is yet another opportunity where you can be part of the learning cycle that we are trying to have, propagated through the community. And also there is the Driving Engineering Excellence webinar series. This is the first one today that we're doing it, but the Engineering Excellence series that is going to start, and you will have a series of topics that go one after the other. And also education on mechatronics and transitions and machine learning adoption. We can help you assist with that. Support for recall readiness, especially we've seen how sometimes we have boots on the ground at specific supplier manufacturing locations. We've had to even, come in to do specific problem solving activities with that. And then lastly, of course, in-person training that we can either do private or to any one of our open enrollment courses. So you can use that calendar link that Juan shared in the previous slide.
All right. And we're at the end of our time, but I'll leave you with this one thought, with these two thoughts, actually. We're going to be doing these events, and these are going to be topics for our driving engineering excellence. So normally these events here are in this Michigan, Ohio area, but we're looking to do these events in the different areas to bring the knowledge to you. So if you're not located in the Metro Detroit area, reach out and let's talk about partnering up to do an event. I'm actually working on one right now for the West Coast for December, January timeframe, which we're going to be posting soon. All right, and then on the right side is just the different topics we're going to be starting with. So if there's questions, you have our contact, so please reach out. Nikhil, anything else?
Real quick, we do have a question. Yeah, there's one question, which is looking at the recall trend and the share of it growing for software. We may say that mechanical engineering is improving while software is just kind of getting worse. So what the question is would it be possible to reproduce the steps or the development model that's already taken in mechanical development and apply that towards software development? And which parts can be applied?
Okay. So the idea that mechanical development is improving, we can talk about that. Mechanical has things that you can touch and feel. Software is something that, and you build physical parts so you can take measurements. Software is something that's a little bit more, you can't do 100%, at least not yet, 100% inspection on every piece. So the idea that we want to improve the development of software or make it more aligned with the results we get from mechanical development, that's really tied more into what we've been discussing, which is adherence to some of the standards, maturity and development, because you don't normally see people skipping measurements on mechanical pieces, right? But you'll see people skipping critical parts of development activities in software because that's the first thing that needs to go. Let's not review it. Let's not do some of the basic testing. Let's skip some testing. But in mechanical, you don't see that. These are physical parts that people touch. So yes, they're going to check out the dimensions and do those things. So I guess in short, I do agree if we apply that same mentality that each step in the development process is important. I think we could improve that. That's my input. And I do have another thought about the idea that a lot of these software problems we need to dig into to find out whether they're really systems issues, the relationship between the different disciplines and how we've not communicated the appropriate set of requirements. Nikhil?
No, I think just to that example you were saying with mechanical, right? Because of I think the question was posed by somebody with a mechanical background. It's just like sampling rate. Sometimes in the control plan, they say, you have to take one sample for every 5 parts that you manufacture. That's a sampling rate. What's the assurance that that sampling rate is actually being followed? Whereas with software, really, there's only one product, but you're just flashing the same thing as long as it is released across to all the products that will be manufactured. It's like a release software version. So if in a manufactured part, if you're able to do 1 in 5 sampling, why can we not sometimes do that same discipline for that one single software we're manufacturing or producing? To simply put it, of course it's like a different way of looking at it. Does software have a part number? It probably should, right? Sometimes we see where it is not treated as an element in the bill of materials. It is just treated as a floating ware and something that is like a cloud. But it is something that it's not visually there. It's on a chip, but it is something that really exists. That is the brain behind the functioning system.
Okay, thank you guys.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Juan. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say, moving forward, the concept of software part numbers, that's going to be more relevant because of all the OTA activities. There's no way to keep track of the compatibility, right? And I'll also add that you can definitely improve that relationship, because you're not going to, again, the idea of maturity in software has to come through the development steps and reducing issues in each step. From requirements to design and mechanical, like Nikhil said, right? You can look at the finished product, but it's still going to cost you to make those changes. So I think that just putting that same rigor on the back end of it, on the front end of it, will help to improve. But I'd love to continue that conversation with whoever asked the question, because we've had several different workshops on that, and there's a lot of opinions that come out of it. So, but that's all I have, Andrew.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I know we went a little bit over time, but it's a complex subject and there's a lot to discuss. So, we'll be continuing with some of these topics in our webinar series, as Nikhil and Juan mentioned. So stay tuned for additional dates to be released for the next few webinars in this series. And if you have any questions or you want a recording or a copy of the slides used in this presentation, email us at webinars@omnex.com and we will be able to get those over to you as well. So thank you all for attending and have a great day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.